Good afternoon, fellow math educators. How are you today? I hope you are doing well and enjoying this webinar. Our group is tasked to present to you mathematics in our traditional games. Our presentation is entitled Playing with Numbers, the Mathematics of Pitiw and Sungka. For a while, we will travel back through time and reminisce some of our traditional games that we used to play during our childhood and relate it with mathematics. I welcome you all to the wonderful world of games. Here are our objectives for today's presentation. The first one, to provide a rationale on the need to embed laro ng lahi in teaching and learning mathematics. Second, to share mathematical meanings or concepts found in the chosen laro ng lahi. And finally, to explicitly embed the topic in the teaching of mathematics in basic education and to state the competencies based on the curriculum guide of the Department of Education. I hope you are ready. I now present to you our first discussant, Ma'am Faith Dofeliz. Take it away, ma'am.
Thank you, Sir Alfie. So here's the background or rationale. Philippine traditional games or laro ng lahi is a cultural treasure or yaman ng lahi. Played by generations from our grandparents to our parents and among the youth and toddlers of today across the country. Children use native materials or instruments that can be found in the locality. This hones them to be very creative, to invent games without needing anything but players, which makes the game more interesting and challenging. This is not merely a favorite pastime or entertainment. Rather, it develops the Filipino values of sportsmanship, patience, camaraderie, and the like. In addition, it can unknowingly provide mathematical learning. Laro ng lahi was coined and popularized by the Samahang Makasining with the help of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, Philippine local government units, and others. For them, such games are vital in keeping the cultural values of our ancestors alive. Indeed, it brings a smile among our elders whenever they vividly reminisce on the days when they used to play it. A culture-based mathematics in games is a prominent component to pedagogical practices. Therefore, contextualizes mathematics teaching and learning. According to Foz, AQ, and Amit, M. 2017, the use of games from the student's culture may contribute greatly to the student's learning process, help them better understand, raise their motivation, and ultimately improve their achievements in math. They believe that the ethno-mathematical approach can revolutionize the thinking and perspective of math educators. We will focus on the Pityo and Sungka played by the people of Panay, such as Ilonggos, Bukidnons, Aklanons, and Antiqueños. So the first Philippine traditional game that we're going to tackle is Pityo. Pityo is a Panay version of the Shatong game, native Cebuano game that was famous in the 70s and 80s. This game mirrors the culture of a certain place, and locals create their own version or name. The name Shatong takes on other name variations like Shato, Shatong, Chatong, Chato, Pityaw, Pityaw, and Pityo. In Siquijor, kids call it Berigtio, similar to Gutala-Guti of Bahrain in the Middle East. Rules may vary in every region. How it is to be played. The players must have a wide outer space. There are at least 2 players. One plays the hitters and the other team serves as the catchers. 2 pieces of sticks are used in the game. The long stick serves as the bat and the shorter one is the hit. Participants must decide on where to dig a shallow furrow on the ground. Jack and Poi and Lumpiang may be played in order to decide on the grouping and initial hitters. There are 3 levels, and this is the first level. The hitter places the short stick or the hit across the furrow. He then launches the short stick into the air as hard as he can to land on the farthest distance, making sure to avoid the fetcher to catch the stick. The fetcher must retrieve the short stick from where it landed and throw it back on the resting longer stick right before the furrow or base. However, if the hitter is unsuccessful in his launch and the fetcher is able to catch the stick in the mid-air, his team loses its turn to play as hitters and must take the role of fetchers. Also, if the fetcher is able to hit the longer stick right before the furrow with the short stick, his team takes the role of hitters. But if the fetcher fails to hit it, the hitter proceeds to the second level. Level 2. The hitter suspends the short stick in the air and drops it. While the stick is in mid-air, he must move quickly and strike it as hard as he can to make sure that the short stick lands on the farthest distance. At the same time, he must avoid the fetcher to catch the short stick. In the case that the fetcher catches the short stick or the hit, the hitter's team loses its turn to play and must exchange roles as fetchers. However, if the stick is not intercepted, the fetcher throws it back to the hitter, and the hitter must strike the stick back as far as he can manage to earn bigger points. If the hitter is successful in striking back the stick, then the team proceeds to the third level. But if the hitter fails, his teammate takes his turn to play and continue the same level. And here's the last, level 3. The hitter must position the short stick closely at a 45-degree angle against the furrow, making sure that the stick protrudes enough for an easy hit. The hitter then taps the short stick to launch it into the air and quickly strikes it to fly as farthest distance as he can, making sure to avoid the fetcher. The hitter can do this only for 3 attempts. If he fails, his teammates can take his turn to continue the same level. If the hitter is successful in his launch, they can gain points in addition to level 2. In the same case that the hitter fails to strike or a fetcher catches the hit, the hitter's team loses a turn. But if the hitter succeeded in all levels, he turned over the game to his teammate. The next player repeats the process until everyone gets a turn to play the bat and hit. And to continue on the mathematical concept and competencies of Pityo, we are pleased to welcome Ma'am Shanna May Bautista. Take it away, Ma'am Shan.
Thank you, Ma'am Faith. A pleasant afternoon to everyone. I will be discussing some of the mathematical concepts related to Pitiw and its competencies based on the curriculum guide. The Department of Education provided the K-12 Mathematics Curriculum Guide for teachers to use in providing learners in kindergarten to grade 10 a solid foundation for mathematics and in making them ready in senior high school mathematics. This curriculum guide serves as the teacher's Bible in providing necessary concepts and life skills needed by Filipino learners as they proceed to the next stage in their life as learners and as citizens of the Philippines. Our laro ng lahi, specifically Pitiw and Sungka, can be of great help in teaching specific topics in mathematics and to engage learners in an active learning process. The first topic is about geometry. In geometry, an angle is measured in degrees from 0 degree to 180 degrees. The number of degrees indicated the size of the angle. In playing Pitiw, basic trigonometry can be applied in order to check the fairness of measuring the distance on how far the stick has reached. While measuring the distance, there are angles formed by the long stick, which is used as measuring tool that can be resulted in having the right angle, wherein the base will be the ground, the hypotenuse is the long stick, and the perpendicular line is the height of the triangle. In trigonometry, 0-degree angle exists. This game can also be used in solving real-life problems involving right triangles that uses trigonometric ratios, a lesson in geometry which is being taught in 4th grading of grade 9 learners. In order to have a fair basis of scoring in this game, the teacher must ensure that the stick must be parallel to the ground. Sometimes, some players are tricky. They take a quick measurement by creating an angle with the ground, desiring to decrease the length of each unit. That will eventually result in an increase of score. This will result in an imaginary right triangle, wherein the ground will serve as the base of the triangle, the stick will be the side of the adjacent to the base, and the third side will be the imaginary line forming a right triangle. Showing in the slides are the different measurement of angle of the long stick. In order to show the differences between the measurement of the long stick that is parallel to the ground and having an angle, the teacher will let the learners compute the distances from the start to end point. If the angle of the long stick is 30 degrees from the ground, 60 degrees from the ground, and the proper way of measuring it, which is the long stick, must be parallel to the ground. Then the students will determine the differences of the scores they can have. The higher the degree of the angle between the base and the hypotenuse, which is the long stick, will result in an increase of score. Therefore, for both teams to have a fair play, the teacher must explain to the learners that when measuring the stick, it must be parallel to the ground. Another topic in geometry will be discussed by Ma'am Maryjoy Llanda. Take it away, Ma'am.
Thank you, Ma'am Shanna May. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. There is also another mathematical concept in geometry that is found in playing Pityo. There are strategies wherein geometry can be applied, such as how the player places the short and long sticks in the furrow. There are also angles that you need to consider in order to have a good hit with the shorter stick in playing the level 1 of Pityo. With this concept, Pityo can be used as an engaging activity. Pityo can also be the teacher's springboard in deriving relationships of geometric figures using measurements and by inductive reasoning, specifically the supplementary angles, adjacent angles, and linear pairs, which are being discussed during the second week of third grading in Mathematics 7. In the level 1 of the game Pityo, the teacher will demonstrate setting the short stick having contact both with the long stick and the ground. This will form a linear pair of two adjacent and supplementary angles, 1 and 2, with a common side, which is the long stick, and a common vertex. Moreover, the first angle, which is the large angle from the ground to the long stick, is supplementary to the second angle, which is the small angle from the ground to the long stick. Hence, the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is equal to 180 degrees. In order to solve for the measurement of the two angles, the teacher will let the learners measure the first angle, which is the large angle from the ground to the long stick, using a protractor. Also, In order to solve for its supplementary angle, which is angle 2, the learners will subtract the measure of angle 1 from 180 degrees. The learner can also do the other way around. He can also measure the second angle, which is the small angle from the ground to the long stick, and then subtract it to 180 to solve for its supplementary angle 1. For example, in this figure, using a protractor, the measure of angle 1 is equal to 117 degrees. In order to solve for the measure of its supplementary angle, which is angle 2, the learners will subtract the measure of angle 1 from 180 degrees. Thus, in this example, 180 degrees minus 170 degrees is equal to 63 degrees. To check, just add the measures of angle 1 and angle 2. If the sum is equal to 180 degrees, then the answer is correct. In this example, 117 degrees plus 63 degrees is equal to 180 degrees. Thus, the answer is correct. Moreover, the teacher may increase or decrease the inclination of the long stick, but make sure to keep the long stick having contact both with the short stick and the ground, so that the measure of the given angle will vary. This will let each learner participate in this simple activity of solving supplementary angles. Now, let's proceed to another mathematical concept. Measurement is also another mathematical concept that is present in Pityo. Measuring the length or distance makes use of measuring tools like ruler, measuring tape, and others. For example, the length of a pencil can be measured in centimeters using a ruler. The height of the students can be measured using foot as a unit of measurement. You are free to use metric or English system of measurement. When playing Pityo, the measuring tool to be used is the long stick. Measuring the distance between the starting point to the end point, where the stick has actually fell or landed, helps the learners to identify the distance between these 2 points. Using the long stick as their measuring tool will make them have the estimation of the distance or the length between these 2 points. This time, we'll use Pityo in approximating the measures of quantities, particularly the length or the distance. This is being taught for grade 7 learners in the first week of second grading. In this activity, the teacher must provide 2 sticks with exact measurements. She can choose either metric or English system of measurement. For example, the long stick will be 12 inches or 1 foot long, while the short stick will be 6 inches or half foot long. This can be used especially in level 2 and level 3 of the game, where the teams use measurement to earn points. The harder the longer stick strikes, the farther the short stick flies from the drop point to the furrow. Therefore, the more points the hitter gets. This is counted based on the longer stick as a unit of measure. To make a twist for this game, the teacher may ask the specific teams with the distance of the stick from the furrow to the drop point, using the specific measurement assigned to the sticks. If the team's answer is incorrect, this will nullify their score. That's all for my part. Thank you so much for listening. At this juncture, please welcome our next resource speaker who will present to you the concept of mathematics in another game. A round of applause for Mr. Alfie Silva. The virtual room is yours, Sir Alfie.
Thank you, Ma'am Joy, and good afternoon once again. So we will now proceed with our second traditional game, which is the Sungka. Sungka is a Filipino version of Mangkala, which is considered by many to be the oldest game in the world. So Mangkala games are characterized by rows of cup-shaped holes and the proportionate number of playing counters such as seeds, shells, or stones. It is believed that this game has evolved in Egypt and in some parts of ancient Sumeria. So the recorded history of Mancala goes back to 17th century, but historians believe that it existed much earlier, but the absence of rules makes the suggestion only speculative. So the most dominant feature of Mancala games in Southeast Asia is the inclusion of each player's store, which is an enlarged hole at the end of the board. So several countries in Southeast Asia have their own variants of Mancala. For example, in Indonesia and in Malaysia, the game is known as Sungka or Dakon, where it is played in two rows of three with up to two rows of nine or more holes with two store holes at each end. In Maldives, this game is called a Valhu, which means game of 8 holes. So board with rows of 6 and 10 holes are popular in Maldives. So the term Sungka is believed to be driven from the word Sunka. It is an Indonesian term which refers to the stream which is widely known to voyagers as the Red River. Sungka was first described by the Jesuit priest Father Jose Sanchez in his Dictionary of the Bisaya Language or Cebuano in 1692 as Kunggit. Even today, Aklanong people still call the game Kunggit. So the Philippine community have taken the Sungka game to other destinations where it has caught on as a pastime for the local population as well. At the present, there are several Sungka tournaments held in the Philippines and even abroad like Taiwan, Australia, Austria, England, and in the United States of America. In the Philippines, the biggest competition is held each year at the Kadayawan Sports Festival in Davao. Sungka is not only a game but a key tool for establishing identity, especially among Filipino migrants. This can be seen in Sungka competitions organized in the Philippines and in representations of Philippine culture at cultural festivals during Sungka demonstrations. This includes the work of Natalie Gonzalez Salaway entitled Sungka and the Smiling Irish Eyes. A boy discovers what it means to be half Irish and half Filipino, which embodies the identity-forming function of the game Sungka. Another one is the work of Alison M. De la Cruz, a feminist poet and scientist who wrote a one-woman performance called Sungka, which analyzes the societal and family-related expectations regarding gender-specific behavior and sexuality, race, ethnic affiliation by comparing it to Sungka. Sungka is also used by fortune tellers and prophets, which are called in Philippines as bailan or manghuhula for divinatory purposes. So older people consult them to find out whether the journey of a youth is favorable at a certain day. Girls would also come to them to find out whether they will marry one day and the time they will be married if they will. According to the superstitious belief, this game should be played outside because they believe that their house will burn if they play inside. In the Anay district in Panay, the loser is said to be patay or dead. The belief is that he will have a death in his family or that his house will burn down. So how is this game played? Sungka is played by two persons using a wooden block called sungkaan, usually carved with intricate designs depicting the culture of a particular part of the archipelago where the sungkaan is made. It has two rows of 7 holes and 2 large holes at both extremes called the head. The game starts with 49 game pieces for each player, which vary from shells, marbles, pebbles, or seeds depending on their availability. Each player controls the 7 holes on his side of the board and owns the head to his right. The goal is to accumulate as many pieces as possible in your own head. The first player takes away all pieces from the hole on the extreme left on his side. He then distributes them counterclockwise, one in each hole to the right of the hole, leaving out an opponent's head but not a player's own head. If the last piece distributed falls into the player's own head, then the player earns another turn, which can start at any of the 7 holes on his side. On the other hand, if the last piece distributed falls into an empty hole on his side, Then the player captures all the pieces in the hole directly across from this one on the opponent's side and put them in his own head. If the opposing hole is empty, no pieces are captured. The other player chooses which hole he wishes to start from, removes the pieces, and distributes them, one in each hole to the right of the chosen hole. If a player has no more pieces on his side of the board during his turn, then he must pass. The game ends when no pieces are left in any of the hole on both sides of the board. The player now counts the number of pieces in their own head, and the one who has the most number wins. So that is all for my part, and thank you very much for listening. The mathematical concepts and the competencies embedded in the game Sungka will be discussed to us by Sir Albert SAnico. Take it away, sir.
Thank you, Sir Alfie. Now let us come to the different mathematical concepts involved in playing Sungka. Now before anything else, we have to take note that playing pieces of Sungka are manipulatives, and they are concrete teaching aids that facilitate the learning of counting, estimation, and basic operation of addition, subtraction, and division. This is according to De La Cruz and others in 2000. Therefore, using Sungka as a teaching tool complies with the CSA, or Concrete Semi-Concrete Abstract Sequence, recommended for the acquisition of mathematical concepts. As a result of playing Sungka, players will be able to improve their counting skills, which is illustrated in the following scenarios. First, at the start of the game, as a general rule, players will gather 49 pieces and distribute them equally among the 7 holes. To do these tasks, they should know how to count and divide numbers. Thus, Sungka can be used to develop the following competencies for numbers and number sense, which states that the learner 1. Visualizes and represents numbers from 0 to 100 using a variety of materials. 2. Counts the number of objects in a given set by ones and tens. 3. Describes and interprets the basic operations on integers using materials such as algebra tiles, counters, chips and cards. And 4. Performs fundamental operations on integers. Second, during the game, in distributing the pieces to holes and to ensure continuity of play and or confiscating pieces, the players have to mentally count to foresee where their last piece will fall. Thus, it develops their mental calculations. So in this case, Sungka may be employed to develop another competency in numbers and number sense, which states that the learner subtracts mentally one-digit numbers using appropriate strategies. Finally, at the end of the game, to declare the winner, the players must be able to compare and determine who has the most pieces. So, Sungka may be used to target a competency in numbers and number sense, which states that the learner visualizes, represents, and compares two sets using expressions less than, more than, and as many as, or these refer to relation symbols for higher grades. Now, aside from improving students' counting skills, since watching the opponent's every move requires memory, observation, and concentration, playing Sungka will also improve students' memory, reasoning, and problem-solving abilities by requiring them to apply new strategies to each encounter. There is also logic involved, since students will recognize patterns of movements. Furthermore, geometry is also illustrated in the shapes of the Sungkaan and the wholes. Hence, sunka or playing sunka can also be used to target a grade 3 competency in geometry, which requires students to identify, name, and describe the 4 basic shapes in 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional objects. In other words, since students often require a greater number and variety of experiences to learn mathematical concepts, the use of sunka widens the available choices, which can also be used to remediate a number of less mastered skills. So how do we embed sunka in the teaching of mathematics? So to help teachers integrate the playing of sunka in teaching, here are some guidelines proposed by De La Cruz et al. In 2000 for incorporating sunka into the teaching of basic mathematics. First, after a mathematical concept related to playing sunka has been discussed, the teacher will introduce sunka to 2 students and let the others observe. While the rules of sunka are simple, modeling the steps is the most effective approach to teach the game. Then, you may invite students who are observing from the sidelines to participate as well. Second, the teacher may ask students to write or orally describe their reactions to playing sunka. Because the game provides new experiences, teachers should allow students to express themselves. Sunka can also be used by students for mathematical investigations. Third, rotate the pairing of players. By encouraging students to pair up with different partners, you provide non-threatening and inclusive opportunities for students to play together. Fourth, make opportunities for students to learn about the history of sunka. So students may conduct research on the origins of sunka, as well as its various rules and game boards. They can also show how people in other countries play different variations of sunka. And finally, you may also ask students to improvise sunka game boards using modeling clay, egg cartons, small containers, cups, or jar lids as art projects. In closing, to make mathematics teaching and learning fun and enjoyable, teachers must be creative and innovative. Several studies have found that using local games in the context of mathematics has a significant influence on learning, since children love to play games with their friends, peers, and classmates. Thus, including traditional games into mathematics teaching can be a method of enhancing students' mathematics performance. And here are our references. We hope that you have learned something from our presentation. Good day and God bless everyone.